Gotta just make sure it's all running fine. This has been an experiment in which I didn't think I'd have to do. I didn't really think I was gonna do a live show, but nevertheless, we are here on this fine Sunday afternoon. Hello, everyone. How are we all doing? I hope we're all doing well. And within the basis of course, I promote this stream on a lot of places. I'm sure you all know what the plan is. We're going to be talking Newport. We're going to be talking the past 2 months. I was going to do all of these. I just kicked my tripod. Brilliant stuff. We were going to do all of these in video format. However, the way that things have gone, there's so much news that it's quite difficult to, do all of that. So I love that I can have comments appear. That's brilliant. Hello, Tom. How are we? But nevertheless, I've got a few things that are quite, different that I hope will individualize this stream a bit more than others. And the start of it, just while we wait on getting more people in, let's run the titles.
In your bucket hat, flying across the country and getting fat, saying everything is groovy when your tires are flat and it's high on Newport County.
Yep, that is it. That is all of the intro done. So I think we'll get straight into it. I see that we've got 4 people in at the minute. I hope we're all well. Feel free to interact in the chat as things go past. But what we're going to do, and I've got to find the bit here, I've got this separated into parts. We've got 5 different parts to cover. Of course, any interaction in the chat, feel free. But we'll talk about this first, because as much as it's potentially not the most exciting thing to talk about, I think it's an important factor that we have to go into. From where the season ended up until the date of Graham Coughlan's departure, if I'm not mistaken, it was about 2 months in between that. We had the released and retain list, which of course is standard with all clubs, and then nothing else really in between it, which, off of the basis of things, obviously looking in hindsight, it was definitely probably the smart thing to do with, of course, Hugh Jenkins getting along with everything, including the signings we're going to make, the inevitable announcement of the coach changing and whatnot. I think it was definitely the smart thing to do, keep it on the down low and then wait until the right time to announce anything, just so it doesn't get, too exciting or things go wrong in between it. It was waiting until everything was confirmed, which I think was probably the smart thing to go for. But, within the basis, I did understand why people were, I suppose, worried, or why people were impatient and not wanting those kind of things to happen, because, of course, as football fans, we want things to happen as quick as possible, but every now and again, that isn't possible. So within that basis, I think the only thing I kind of wanted to say during that was, if that basis of news was going to last a little bit longer, I think the timing of it was spot on in terms of the news we got and all the clarity and all the statements that came out from Hugh Jenkins. I think they were all timed really well, of course, in hindsight. But while you're waiting there for 2 months with little to no news, it is, definitely not something that you absolutely love seeing. But we'll go swiftly on, because, of course, that was just a thing I wanted to cover and just have a very, very brief talk about. We've got the second part of it, which I can see Alex is in here. Hope you're well, man. I saw when you mentioned on Twitter you would prefer a live show. I decided to get with it, and look, I'm being all fancy. There's things moving at the bottom of the screen, and the inverted in the top corners. You can see all of the kind of graphics moving about and whatnot. But this is the second part I wanted to get into. Of course, the first bit of no news was, for me, a little bit of clarity, a little bit of just mentioning. Glad to hear you're doing well, man. But I just wanted to get that little bit out there that, that news in hindsight, or the lack of rather, was a good thing, I feel. But we'll go into the second part. You can read it at the bottom. There is the released and retain list, and Graham Coughlan, of course, departing the club by mutual consent. Now, if you see me looking over to the left, it is because I've got all of the I've got the release and retain list, I've got signings, I've got all this other stuff on the screen, so I don't have to memorize it necessarily. So within the announcement of departures, we of course had Joe Day, Declan Drysdale, Omar Bogle, Alfrande Zanzala, James Waite, Johnny Maxted, Harrison Bright, and Sam Bowen. Immediately it was announced that we would not be talking to renew their contracts. I remember when that came out. Of course, this was a good while ago now, so we can look back at it at hindsight and the signings we've made and whatnot. The removal of 2 goalkeepers, I know, we all thought last summer that Joe Day wasn't really going to play anyway because he was out on loan to, it was originally assigned 2 divisions below, but then it was down to the National League. The race of Johnny Maxted, I mean, I kind of understand there was a pretty, so I wouldn't say substantial, but a pretty noticeable quality difference between him and Nick Townsend, of course. There was a run, wasn't it, last season it would have been about November, December time, where it was Johnny Maxted playing, and we all thought, oh, he'll take the spot of Nick Townsend, and then that debate started. And then, of course, I think it was only about 2 or 3 games before it was changed to the inevitability that it was going to be Nick Townsend remaining the starting goalkeeper for the entire season. Other than that, of course, you've got Declan Drysdale, who got released, who I thought was a good centre-back when he was playing. He wasn't phenomenal, but, he was decent enough to, I suppose, justify his position in the squad and justify, why there were so many eyes on him when he joined us originally 2 years ago. But you understand why, he was definitely injury-prone more than we would have liked. Exactly the same with Zanzala. Quality player on his day, I always envisioned that Wimbledon game where he was holding the ball up and he squared it down to Bryn Morris, and that goal was created. And I remember that game very much so being the standout for him in that regard. But then you've got James Waite, who I remember reading on Facebook, Twitter, and all these other things about how it was, how he potentially wasn't ready, and he made that jump to League Two too soon. Of course, he's now moved to Western-super-Mare, who are in the National League South. So those 2 division drop downs, he's been at that club before. I'm sure he'll do well. But I think he was a bit too potentially, he was too high up the pitch for a lot of things. He didn't provide as much as potentially we would have liked in the areas that we kind of needed. He didn't really offer that link up that we needed between the midfield and attack that we saw in, the 22-23 season when you had Cameron Norman, Mariah Welsh, and everyone linking up really nicely. He didn't quite, I suppose, fit that standard and fit that par, but it's no insult to him at the end of the day. I hope him nothing but the best at Western. It just unfortunately didn't work out. Harrison Bright, I think that was the one that I questioned the most. Obviously, he got into the squad, particularly in the second half of the season when his loan move at Barry was ended. But I thought he was, for the most part, really solid. I thought he offered something different when we were creating things down that right-hand side. Albeit, yes, he wasn't the best defensively, but the way Graham Coughlan ran with his setup, I don't think we needed necessarily defensive fullbacks. But obviously, he was also merited and credited for playing right centre-back, and he didn't really get that opportunity. And when he did, he didn't perform too well in terms of the defensive capabilities and all this other stuff. So that was the one I probably questioned the most. If it wasn't that, it was definitely the release of Omar Bogle. Of course, he had the injury that ruled him out for a lot of the season. It was in pre-season, and then it ruled him out for a lot longer than we anticipated. However, when he came back, he's just a standard, Omar Bogle that we knew, the one that would hold up play. He would offer that link-up play between the wingers or the wing-backs, if you want to say that, and the usual front man and Will Evans. But when you've got Seth Palmer Holden, of course, it was very difficult to break that bond those two had. So he didn't really, I suppose, cement himself in the squad afterwards. But I think he would have been, a useful player to keep hold of for that purpose of offering something different that Will Evans doesn't provide. Will Evans doesn't hold up play and link it with quite the directness that Omar Bogle did. in my opinion. Anyway, of course, if you feel the need to put opinions, feel free to chuck them in the chat. I'll display them and we can dispute them, here on this live show. But yeah, I think then you've also got Sam Bowen, who, of course, the season before last, he had all of the off the pitch issues with his father and whatnot, which really upsetting, of course. And it was really sad to see that it didn't quite work out for him, because I thought he was decent, I suppose, in that first season. Of course, being able to adapt to first team football as a young player, I'm sure, is a really difficult thing to adjust to, especially when you're going from the academy of Cardiff down to Newport. It's not that much of course, a cultural change and a location change, but in terms of the football, I'd imagine it was very different. So I understand, of course, he was at Wealdstone last season. He did really well based off of what I saw, and believe he's now gone to Solihull Moors, if I'm not mistaken, in the National League. So I wish him all the best. I think he still has a lot of room and a lot of talent to, capitalise on eventually. I'd imagine we'll see him back in the EFL at bare minimum. So that were the players that were directly released, and I'll open up the comment from Alex here. Very happy that we managed to keep Evans. I think that's a very good talking point that I will get into after we talk about the players that we offered contracts to, that of course they may not have stayed. He's also on the retain list, as I mentioned. You've got the discussions that we had with the players who were out of contract. Ryan Delaney, in hindsight, of course, he's gone to Swindon. Best of luck to him. I think he's a really solid League Two centre back. I think he does the basics well, and he was decent aerially. Of course, he got that injury that ruled him out in, what was it, February or so, which is probably the start of the injury crisis we all unfortunately have to almost summarize last season with. But then you've got the fact that potentially he didn't provide, I don't know, potentially he didn't provide the thing that a modern centre-back does, where, they're ball playing and all this other stuff. But I didn't really think he needed that necessarily. I thought he was, solid. It's just that generic League Two centre-back, tall, physical, good in the air and whatnot. But the injury, of course, didn't help him. And potentially there was, that reason for him to be let go, because we didn't want players that had that track record of getting injured, because he had it at some of his former clubs as well. You've then got the release of Scott Bennett, of course, gone back to Cheltenham now, or gone to Cheltenham, back with Michael Flynn, which still hurts. I think it still hurts. I understand why it happened, and we'll talk about, Graham Coughlan's departure and some of the things that Hugh Jenkins has mentioned within his statements in a little bit. But I understand why it happened, in the justification of, we wanted to lower the squad age and whatnot. But when you've got a player like Scott Bennett, loyalty is really hard to find in football. Scott Bennett was at the club for, 7 seasons, made 350 appearances for the club. For me, I think he would, especially with the transfer policy we have now, he would have been able to show all of the new players, all of the potentially senior and experienced players, this is the club we're at, these are the facilities. He would have been able to do all of that, and he would have, helped players get into Newport and really fit them in within the culture and all the things at the club. But especially when he made, 45, 46 appearances in the league last season, I don't think he missed a game. He was involved in every one of them. So for me, I still don't think it was a fantastic decision. I understand why. I do understand that Hugh Jenkins wants to lower the age of the squad and whatnot, and potentially Scott Bennett wasn't the player that we always knew would do magnificent stuff and score goals every game, for example. But he did all the simple things well. He was always really consistent and always, good at what he needed to do. So for me, I still don't agree with it, but I understand why it happened. And, if you have thoughts on Scott Bennett, Ryan Delaney, or any of the released players that, I've potentially not read, feel free to let me know. We then offered Harry Charsley, of course, the new deal. He's now gone to Oldham, which is a bizarre move, in my opinion. I think he would have still done a very good job in League Two. I understand that he also fit the description of some of the players we let go and that he got injured every now and again. I understand that, but for me, I think he was very good at what he did, which was be a workhorse, box to box, if you want to do that. He really provided for me what we didn't have in that midfield for a lot of the season, which was that effort and that kind of ability to link up attack and defense. He was one of the players that I thought did really well at that. You know, he was able to get, for example, I remember a lot of the times last season he would get the ball off of Matt Baker, for example, because Matt Baker drove up the field a bit more. He would pass it on to Harry Charsley. Harry Charsley, being the workhorse he is, he would beat a player or so just by running past them, and he'd be able to link it on to potentially a wing back, or he'd pass it more centrally to Seth Holden, or he'd pass it forward to Wilding, and that link was there. And we missed that a lot last season. But again, at the end of the day, injury problems and whatnot, you understand why. But I really don't think he is a player that should have dropped down to the National League. I think he'll do a lot better than I thought he could have done a lot better than the National League. I thought he was a very bare minimum. He could have moved to another League Two club. But I suppose when Graham Coughlan left and the kind of track record of Harry Charsley moving where Graham Coughlan does, I think it was one of the things that we could kind of see coming. But yeah, mixed opinions on Harry Charsley. And then you've got Aaron Wildig, who is the only player who we've offered contracts to that have actually accepted and agreed to stay for another season, I believe it is, which I'm very pleased with. I understand he had the injury problems and he doesn't quite fit the criteria of lowering the age of the squad, but I think I think a lot of people agree when we say he's the only midfielder that has that creative quality and that creative aspect about him, and is almost that attacking midfielder in regards. So to have that quality, and again, it's a senior pro who will be able to help out the new players come in. I'm not in dispute with it. I think it's a good bit of business to get him tied down. But I remember when we got the news that he would stay, of course, the Newport account tweeted that it was a new signing, and within their defense to them, technically it is, it's a player signing a new contract. But I think because of how little news we had, we all thought that it was going to be a new player and a new face. But again, in retrospect, very good bit of news to have. But then I'll open up this comment here from Alex. Very happy that we've managed to keep Evans. Of course, he had his 1-year extension clause triggered. Interesting. I think we've not heard kind of the last of Will Evans debates. I know that he's had a lot of links to clubs in the higher ends of League One and the Championship and whatnot. So I understand that there's potentially not the end of that kind of transfer saga with him, which is very interesting because, of course, you probably say he's our naturally most gifted player. Scored 20 plus. Was it 23 goals he scored last season in all competitions, which is absolutely nuts when you talk about the fact that he didn't have that goal prolific kind of segment to his game the season before last, I should say. But definitely the most improved player. I'm very happy he's on the 1-year extension clause because I think, for me, obviously there's two outcomes of what happens. We either sell him now this summer and we get a good amount of money for him. If we do, based off of Hugh Jenkins's recruitment module and everything that he's kind of put towards the club and whatnot, and the track record he has, I'm sure he'll be able to find players that may not be able to emulate what Will Evans provides, but definitely will be on par with him. We'll be able to kind of develop them in the same aspect we developed Will Evans. But then you've got the other end of the coin, which he stays for another season, and that has two separate outcomes to it, I think. If we challenge for promotion and we potentially go up, which we'll talk about the transfers later, but there's a lot of positives when it comes to that merit at the minute. If we go up potentially, if it happens, you think maybe, will he want to stay at Newport in League One? Will he want to progress with us? Will he sign a new deal, new 1-year, 2-year contract? Potentially. Or then you've got the potentially more realistic approach that we don't quite go up and he moves on a free transfer, but we'll have another year of him to, provide those goals and to provide those qualities. But I also agree with this comment that we couldn't go 45 minutes without an injury, especially in that window from January to February. I felt we were looking at the Newport page and we were seeing this player's injured or this player's out for a good while, or the Twitter account would say this player's out for the rest of the season. Like, to me, that's what it felt like, and I entirely agree with that comment. And thank you to Bet352 for the subscription and whatnot. Really appreciate it. Of course, if you are new here, feel free to like the stream and to subscribe and get involved with the chat. You know, mention all of your opinions on the as you'll be able to see at the minute. We're currently talking about the released and retained list because that's how long I've been gone for. But that is the released and retained list. In summary, I think it's overall, in hindsight, I think it will be a beneficial released and retained list. We've let go of players that are on really high earnings or potentially weren't up to standard for whatever reason, or their injury record wasn't quite good enough and we can't rely on them. So, you know, it is what it is. I think best of luck, of course, to every single player that has departed the club. You know, I have nothing against none of the players we let go, and they were all really good people. You know, I've spoken to a good majority of them, and they were all really, really kind to me. So best of luck to them, and I hope they, you know, they have success at the next club or the next venture they go into. And I agree with this comment here. Those Carabao ads drove me nuts. You get a new notification that Newport County have tweeted after 2.5 weeks, and you go, hold on, is something about to happen here? And then all of a sudden it's, you know, we use code EFL5 and we get 5% off of first Carabao Cup or first Carabao energy drink order, which I have tried Carabao once or twice. And despite the bad reputation it gets for these kind of reasons, it's not an awful drink, I suppose. Don't get me wrong, I don't buy it often. You know, I kind of tried it once out of curiosity and I didn't love it, but, you know, it's okay. It's not overly bad, but we'll get into the next part, which is the next part of this comment. And again, the question needs to be asked: does anyone actually drink it? I don't know. See, potentially, because the thing is, I don't think it's an awful drink. Don't get me wrong. I don't think, you know, it's not something I pick up every day and whatnot. Like, as an energy drink, I'll much prefer to pick up, you know, a Monster or a Red Bull or those kind of things. But I don't know whether it's a thing that, you know, and again, you know, opinions on drinks are different and whatnot, but I don't know whether it's a thing people go and buy very often. It must be a front. Where are you getting the FL Cup sponsor, mate? You know, I'm sure they are a successful, you know, drink company that have the abilities and the things required to be able to provide that kind of stuff. So, you know, I understand it in that kind of regard. But and there we are. There you go. Tom's now said he drinks it sometimes. You know, I'm sure people drink it, but for me, it's not quite my taste. Oh, hello, I'll admit. How are we? Really appreciate you stopping by. See, this is the thing, right, Alex, man. See, people have different opinions on drinks. I don't love it. I don't hate it. But well, we'll move on from the Carabao talk because, you know, that wasn't the original intention. But I'm glad we went off the original track a little bit, because there we are. But we'll then also, I mean, we can mention all of the loan players that departed as well. Lewis Payne, Adam Lewis, Ollie Thomas has been mentioned on here as a player that departed, despite the fact that he left, of course, to join Yeovil once again. And then you've got Matt Baker, who departs, and we'll talk about that later on. Seb Palmer-Holden, who's now went to Dundee. If you've watched Dundee's most recent game, they played a Polish side. I don't know how to pronounce their name's Lex Poknand, or it's something like that. But he played and he scored a wonderful goal. I understand it's a preseason game, but, you know, he's kind of shown that quality that he's had. And then you've got Matty Bonswell, who departed to go back to Newcastle. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, his contract has not been renewed at Newcastle. So, you know, is that a potential signing that we can talk about later on? He fits that criteria of Hugh Jenkins's recruitment policy. What is this, Colin? I've never had it, and until now, I've never heard of anyone having it. Well, there you go. You've heard of people that have had Carabao now. I can see that the Johnny's here, man. Hello, how are we? Pleasure to, really glad to see you stopping by. Really appreciate it. And you've got added. Here he is yet to try Carabao. See, people have different opinions, and they've had different, experiences with Carabao. Some have drunk it, some maybe haven't. But we'll go into this second part before I get distracted by more Carabao adverts. And it's, of course, Graham Coughlan's departure. Now, what I've got on my screen, I've got his, if I can scroll back to it real quick, I've got his managerial statistics while he was at Newport. And then we've got, of course, all of his kind of the summary of what he's done. So he was appointed on October 20th, 2022. If you haven't seen it, and I may relink it on Twitter, I did a video at the end of last season talked about Graham Coughlan at his first, not quite full season, but his first 9 months or so in charge of Newport, which, I was really, really happy with, and we did all this research here. But it was a 2.5-year contract, so his contract would have ran through until the end of this current season we're looking to. But of course, he finished in the 2022-23 season, he finished the club 15th in League Two, which, off the basis of worry, was really good. And then you've got the 23-24 season. Some of the highlights include the cup run where we got to round 4, losing 4-2 to Man United. Of course, we finished the 2023-24 season in 18th place, which felt like it was, a thing that was going to happen, because we were always flirting about with 18th. And one thing I found really funny, if you go into the alphabetical order of League Two at the minute, we're 18th. So we've never moved from what's going on. But on June 20th, 2024, about 3 weeks ago, a little bit less, of course, he was announced that he had a mutual termination at Newport. So I have mixed opinions on it. I think we heard what he spoke about at the end of last season when we finished the game against Bradford, and he wanted to talk about going strength for strength and going for playoffs and whatnot. But of course, the statement reads that we want a head coach. That's the direction the club wants to go into. It wants to go into a head coach module instead of a manager module, which probably summarizes the recruitment policy. It's very much Hugh Jenkins signings. I think that's the basis of how we're going to run as a club for the time being, is that whoever is in charge of the playing side will not, really be in control of the transfers. They will be made by Hugh Jenkins, and whoever comes in will have to get them into fitting into a system and adapt and all this other stuff. So that seems to be the reason that, of course, Graham Coughlan has departed Newport and has moved on to, whatever venture he has next, which is best of luck to him. I thought he was a really, really good manager and did really, really well in really tough times, that the club was in talks of potentially going down for these past 2 seasons. And you look at all the pre-season predictions from even the 22-23 season to last season, a lot of people put us to go down. We had a shoestring budget because we were fan-owned, and I thought he did really well to get us, out of that trouble. And even last season, we were never in talks of a relegation battle, which is absolutely fantastic in its own regard. But of course, he's now been moved on. His stats at Newport, he managed 93 games at the club, 33 wins, 23 draws, 37 losses, for an overall win percentage of 35.48, which, may not look fantastic, but when you look at all of the circumstances that we had, being fan-owned and, not having money to compete with clubs higher end of the table, I think that's a really good return, and I'm really, really pleased that, he got that opportunity to really have, I think, a successful stint at managing the club. And like I said, I wish him all the best because he's a fantastic guy. But that, of course, is the second part. If you have any other opinions on on, Graham Coughlan or the Release the Retain list, feel free to put the comment down now. But you've got a few comments that I'll catch up on. You've got Aled saying, yes, Poznan, that's the name of them. They played Rangers and gave them a good game in European competition, but to get a good away result there is a big thing. Yeah, exactly. It's fantastic to see. Let's be fair. I understand it's like you may not see having a good result against Rangers to be massive, but there we are. And then you've got Aled asking who's the new Newport manager. We're going to be covering all of this kind of stuff after the next segment, or during the next segment, I should say. But as of right now, and that word needs to be changed out. It needs to be coach or head coach, I should say, because that's what we're looking for. But as of right now, nobody. You've then got Alex saying, in my head, season ended in Wimbledon and we finished 12th. I'll take it. For me, the season ended when we played Walsall, and I think we were in 10th. That's when the season ended for me. So, we finished 10th in my eyes, let's be fair. And there, Alex saying we still have no clue. Hopefully we find one soon. Well, I've got many opinions on this. I think next week could be a very, or this week coming could be a very big week. Of course, we start, if I'm not mistaken, we start pre-season this week against Andy. I think within the week, I would imagine that we'll have that announcement come. So hopefully so. As pre-season is quickly approaching. Yeah, exactly. We've got next week, or this week, if you want to put it, this weekend, I believe, is when our pre-season starts. And then you've got Rose saying, hello, how are we? Hope you're well. And then you've got my favorite bunch that do their Wrexham streams, the local pundit, Kieran. There's a lot of context if you don't know that. Of course, there's a lot of lecturing that we need to get up on. And thank you very much. I'm actually very surprised that this has went so well. We're of course half hour in, and we've still got a few things to talk about. But I'm going to be really, really fancy here. Watch this stuff. See, this is why I'm a professional streamer now. Part 3, the season's transfers so far. Now, I don't have every single player and all their history and statistics and everything behind me, because what I've got instead, and you might have seen this on Twitter yesterday, I've got a little video summarizing last season for them, their previous clubs, their position, age, and you'll see a theme within a lot of these players, and the age that they have, and we'll go into more depth. But while of course I pull up all of the more relevant information to this topic, I'm gonna quickly close this, and just feel free to watch. And there we are. As you can see, that is just a little video that I've posted on TikTok, I've posted on Twitter, I've even posted it here on YouTube. It's a very brief, minute-long video summarizing the kind of business we've made. Now, I've got Transfer Market open, and this is where I got all of the news of their statistics and whatnot. I believe this is Logan, if I'm not mistaken. So, hello, mate. I hope you're well. And we'll go in. Look at that, super profesh. There you are. Thank you, mate. Thank you. Really appreciate it. I was thinking, what way could I make this stream slightly different? Because I didn't want to just have me talking, because yeah, we don't. That's not how we roll here. We're super professional, different. But really appreciate it, guys. But that being said, we'll talk about the transfers we've got. Of course, I've got it on my left, which I'm looking over to the right side. It's taking a little while to adjust to that. But we have made 11 signings. If you I see, I have a decent memory. I'm all good though, mate. Thank you for asking, and I'm glad you're well too. But we've made, as I've said, 11 signings. Now it's 9 senior signings, if you want to put it that way. But then you've got the 2 players, Jack Norris and Nelson Sanka, being offered professional contracts, and they also go under the basis of being on transfermarket.co.uk. So I'll go into a very brief summary of what we brought in terms of position and whatnot. We've first brought in Anthony Driscoll Glennon from Grimsby on a free transfer. 24 years old, of course, a left back, which after the departure of Adam Lewis and then Matty Bondswell and even Lewis Payne, we didn't have a left wing back. Like I remember, I believe it was Ollie who made the, well, it would have been Ollie that made the graphics, and we didn't have a left back. So really pleased to see that we've got a left back. And you saw last season, he didn't play too much last season. He got a couple assists and whatnot, but it was the season before where Grimsby went on their cup run that he really impressed. He got, I think he played something along the lines of 46 games, provided goals and assists. And based off of what I've heard from Jordan Richards, he's a Grimsby fan, he mentioned that there's a really good player in there. It's just about being in the right system and getting it out of him. So very exciting addition, of course. Like I said, 24-year-old left back from Grimsby. Nelson's very deserved. Could not be more happy for him. Yeah, I agree. I thought he was probably that that diamond within the rough throughout the end bit of last season. Of course, it was very difficult watching that football at times. So to have that going on was very or to have that deal go over the line after seeing what he was, which was a quality centre back. Very pleased for him. But I'm not quite saying these in order because I do remember the order. I'll try and say them in order, but if I miss one, my bad. You've then got Kieran Brennan, who joined on a free from Sheffield Wednesday. Centre back, 24 years old, didn't really play too much for Sheffield Wednesday, played for their second team, their reserve team, whatever you want to talk about. But last season, he was on loan. It was a 1-month loan at Hartlepool. He played 5 games, if I'm not mistaken. So, he's got a little bit of experience, 24 years old, not someone I had heard of beforehand. One thing I noticed about all of these transfers, other than one of them, who I'll mention in a moment, we didn't really hear anything. We haven't been linked with anyone necessarily. We haven't really seen anything concrete in terms of rumours, but we've just had these deals come through. You've then got, and I'm going to go down in order of, I'll go down in order of what they've been put as on transfer market. The next one on that list, and it's not in chronological order, is Kai Whitmore. This was the player we knew about. Did really well for Haverford West, 23-year-old central midfielder. He was playing in the European or the Europa Conference League qualifying games for Haverford West. And he did really well in the league and all this stuff. Probably one of the more impressive ones when you talk about stats. Of course, Cymru Prem transfer. We always tend to make at least one of those every summer, which is really exciting because we've had a good track record of finding absolute gems that we've been able to, really develop and turn them into good EFL players. You talk, even as recently, you got Will Evans. James Waite's an example. He was a semi-regular in the squad. You've got Priestley Ferguson and then even potentially this season, Nathan Wood, who I'm really excited to see play. I've messaged him and all this stuff about that. But then you've got Jacob Kearney. We signed him from, I'm going to try and pronounce this, but it's not going to go well. Is that, Castellon, I believe is their name. Or Castellon or something along those lines. But Spain, second division, goalkeeper formerly of Sunderland's team. Last season, according to Transfer Market, he only played 1 game. Didn't quite keep a clean sheet. I think it was a 1-0 defeat in the league, which doesn't show immediate senior experience, 23-year-old goalkeeper. Of course, he had a good amount of success with the Sunderland under-23s team. And you may be seeing a theme now with the age of these players, and we'll talk about that in more depth when I go through them all. But we needed another keeper, of course. We only had Nick Townsend available. So to have that extra keeper is very good, and hopefully it provides more competition. Also got to mention, all of these players are on 2-year contracts. That's also very important. You've then got Joe Thomas, who I thought was the Joe Thomas who was a striker for Swansea City. No, this Joe Thomas is a right back for Swansea City. There's two of them, if I'm not mistaken. 22 years old, played a lot of football in the Cumbria Premier League and the Welsh tiers of football, and has had relative success playing for Swansea's team in the Welsh Domestic Cup and their under-21s. I really liked his interview because he's immediately saying, let's push up and try and get promotion. I like that ambition. I understand that I've spoken about that, and we've kind of had the justification of everyone saying, oh, you should be expecting every player to say that. But we haven't really had many players say that, say directly, let's try and get promoted before the season's even started. So it immediately adds that little bit more excitement, doesn't it? But then you've got Michael Spellman from Sunderland's under-21s, the second edition we made from Sunderland's under-21s. He's a winger, 21 years old. Of course, again, 2-year contract, and decent stats last season. I believe he played, it was like 10 games. He had, I think it was 3 goals, 2 assists. It was something along those lines. It's a decent return. I understand it's, the under-21s team, and maybe he doesn't adapt to senior football immediately. But seeing a winger join the club is very interesting, because I do not remember the last time we played with wingers. So does that potentially suggest that we're going to be, signing or converting to a formation with wingers? Potentially, and I think that's really exciting. But we'll see how it goes. Maybe he adapts, I don't know, more centrally. Who knows? Well, we'll have to see. He's 21, so he's got plenty of room to develop. Another player who's 21, of course, being Matt Baker. We've seen him many a times, 2 separate loan spells, one of them being last season, the entire season, and then the one prior from January all the way up to the end of the 22-23 season. 21-year-old centre-back from Stoke City. We all know how good he is if you're a Newport fan, a very much a regular. He's been captain of the Wales under-21 side. He was even on the bench for the most recent Wales friendlies, senior teams. I think he's got a really, really high ceiling, and he's only 21, so 2 years on a contract, he's 23 at the end of it, and he's going to be absolute quality, let's be fair. And potentially, are we going to move him on? Are we going to potentially go up and offer him a new contract and he continues to develop with us? Who knows? But that's a really exciting signing. I think the best one we've made so far. I'll open up some of these comments now. Do you want Billy Walker's? We will pay you to take him. Weirdly, he used to play for Newport. I think he didn't exactly set the world alight, but I don't know. I mean, he didn't do too much at Doncaster, but that being said, Joe Ironside was that good that it was really difficult for him to get into the squad. But I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what the consensus of the Newport fans in chat say. But then you've got Oliver Greaves, who signed from Mickleover in something along the lines of the 7th or 8th tier of English football. 24-year-old attacking midfielder. Now that signing, again, 2-year contract, that signing's very, very different, because he signed from so far down in the, in the football pyramid, you question if he'll be able to adapt. Now, I think the thing that's exciting about him, not only did he play 48 games and he scored 24 goals. I understand it's not quite as high as a level of football, but that's a really good return. Formerly members of the Sheffield United Academy, he's played a little bit of football in the EFL and whatnot, but injuries have meant that, it's been really difficult for him to adapt. But he had loads of interest, apparently, following how good he was, and we were the first ones to go into it. Liked his interview because he said he wants to get, back on track and continue to develop the clubs. I think, potentially a risky bit of business, but I think it'll go fantastically. But I will open this comment quickly from that Cardiff City fan. Hello, this is very random, but I'm a Cardiff fan, but on weekends I can't make Cardiff away games I go to Newport and I really enjoy it down there. Fantastic to hear, mate. And I'm not here, saying that this is only a Newport show. If you support, no matter what club you support, feel free to join in any form of a discussion, even if it's about your own club. Even if it's about your own club, Billy Waters, and I should know who Bickers is, but I don't. I feel like I should know who that is, though. And then you've got, what other comment is this? Any news on the new kit? Just wondering. This is another thing I was wondering. I haven't heard anything. I haven't really seen anything. And if I'm not mistaken, this time last season, Bickerstaff, all right, yeah, all right. Yeah, fair. No. But this time last season, we would have had the home kit out because we wore it on the last game of the 22-23 season against Crewe. So, no, I haven't heard anything. And every single signing we've made has been wearing, the like last season's shirt, the one I'm wearing right now. Hold on, the comment's a bit high, that one. But I won't complain if we stick with the same shirt. I do like this shirt. I did see this. I did see this. Cameron Actwee is apparently going to be signing. Is it you say our youngster? Is it a loan, permanent? How's that working out? If you heard anything, but I have seen that, but I don't remember if it was a permanent, a loan, or whatnot. But very exciting, irregardless. And then the final two bits, you've got Jack Norris and Nelson Sanker. Permanent. I will not complain by any stretch of the imagination. Having that transfer policy is really exciting. But yeah, Jack Norris, Nelson Sanker really got into the first team at the end of last season. And I believe they're 17 and 18 respectively. So to have that, that quality of player at that kind of age is really exciting. And I'm looking forward to him. But I don't get why we don't loan our youngsters to you like we did with Mark Harris. See, Swansea have usually been the team to loan us players, and we've been able to develop them. Ollie Cooper was the main example, but I don't know. We've taken a few. I think we've had a decent amount of business in the past. Like Sam Bowen was a Cardiff player. Zimba was a Cardiff player, and we signed him on loan, for example. Obviously, we sold Joe Gay to, or was it to Peterborough? We bought him off Peterborough, but we sold him to you, if I'm not mistaken. We've had a bit of business in the past, but no, it doesn't seem like we have the same relationship that Newport and Swansea do with that kind of transfer policy. But that being said, I heard you're after Will Grigg, but I think it's one of those fake rumor accounts. If we sign Will Grigg, I'll bite my hat off. I don't wear a hat, but I'll buy a hat and eat it because that will be bizarre. But what we'll talk about is, of course, the transfer policy we've got and all of the all of the things that we could potentially be going into with whatever business we have. We're a little bit weak in the midfield still. We don't have quite that depth to reliably deal with injuries and everything. You'd argue we probably still want 2 attackers. You'd argue maybe we want another 1 or 2 defenders, senior pros, and then you probably want another senior pro at left back, for example. So there's still a good amount of business needs to be made, but the average age of every signing we've made, if you take all of their ages and put them into an average, 22.1. Total market value with 800 grand. Of course, that is very much available to go up or go down depending on how the development of those players go. But the transfer policy is, and you would have potentially noticed it if you listened to me talk about all the ages, no player we've signed is under the age of 24, which is really, really exciting because it's a recruitment policy that you've seen Rochdale implement and have success with. Portsmouth have implemented it. Swansea have even implemented it at times, where you've signed Premier League academy players or, highly rated young players in National League or steps below, or even in League Two. You develop them on 2-year contracts, which all these players have 2-year contracts, and you potentially sell them on. that is really exciting. It's a really successful business policy or transfer policy if you get it right. Because if you get it right, it's fantastic, and your club can go, up and up, because you can have one player, develop him for 2 years. He does really well. You sell him on, and you sign 3 players from the same kind of field of area, develop them, sell them on, bring in 9 players, for example. That's the kind of recruitment module that it looks like Hugh Jenkins wants to implement at the club. And he almost seems like that's the business module we want to implement at the club to make sure we're a sustainable club, even without ownership money. So really, really exciting, because I love that policy. I love Rochdale's policy with it. Of course, they more do it with a youth academy, but they've done that policy of developing players and selling them on. We, of course, have the news that we're moving our academy down to the USW Park in Cardiff, which almost shows the incompetency of, or not incompetency, but the lack of quality of training facilities we have in Newport for young players. It looks to be a temporary thing while new things get put into place in the hopefully near future. But we'll have to see, because hopefully we can develop an academy that can benefit the club, and we can have more players that are born in Newport or developed in Newport get into the first team and get sold on. That Rochdale policy again, or that Portsmouth, or that Swansea or Cardiff policy for a good few years. If we can implement that along with the the policy of signing players in that are under 24, we could be in for a really successful short-term, medium-term, and long-term growth. That will be fantastic. But we'll have to see. Yeah, they went to us and played like 30 minutes. Yeah, I think that move happened too soon, I'll be honest with you. Rochdale are brilliant with their academy. Exactly. See, you kind of, that policy, it looks like that's what Newport are going to start doing. My first Newport game was Newport 0, 1 Rochdale 22-23, and James Rowbury got sacked. Yeah, I remember watching that game. It was absolutely miserable. Weirdly, my first Newport game was in that season. It was in August of that season, the end of August. It was Tranmere 2, or was it Tranmere 3 Newport? No, it was Newport 2, Tranmere 1, if I'm not mistaken. So, that's the kind of I'm not that old of a fan necessarily, but I like to look at the history and make sure I know what the history of the club is and whatnot. And I'm really proud to support the team. Another random comment, but what are your opinions on Ian Henderson? Within all honesty, I don't have that many opinions on Ian Henderson. I'm not going to act like I'm a professional, or I even kind of know who he is in depth. So I'm going to leave that quiet in worry of saying something that is wrong or something that I do not have an expertise of talking about. But of course, we've talked about the transfers. There's one more part of the transfers that we need to talk about, and I need to open up the statement. I've not got the statement currently open, but will any of the games be decided by a goal this season? Kieran, Sean, I'm sure many games this season will be decided by a goal. I'm 100% sure of it, or at least many a goals. You know what? Maybe even some of the games will be decided by a lot of goals. Sorry, guys. What can I say? It's absolute genius within that basis. See, this is why you're all here, because my footballing expertise and really inspiring words of wisdom. But we'll talk about he's a coach. He's not head of coach. He's an individual coach put down on transfer market. Ian Henderson will be 40 halfway through the season and is still Rochdale striker and record goal scorer. It looks like he's retiring. And also, I was thinking of a different Ian Henderson, but I didn't know you were about the Ian Henderson, the Rochdale player. Obviously, if you're on Twitter and you're on the Absolute Football Podcast, you'll know Shah. You'll know she's a Rochdale fan, and you'll know that she really, really likes Ian Henderson. And credit to him for going and playing football at that level, all the way up until 40. It looks like it could be his last season, but to be that leader and to be that example of player is really exciting. And that's why, for example, I didn't overly agree with the release of Scott Bennett, because I thought that experience was vital. And experience in football, if you can mix and match it with young players and players almost in between, that's how you get the success. So, credit to him. He's, phenomenal. Fair play to him. But yeah, we've got Nelson Jardim in as a coach, an individual coach. He's not the head coach or the manager or however you want to put it, but he's part of the coaching staff, which I think is really exciting. I do not remember the last time we had a coach, if you want to put it that way, with this kind of stature. Not a manager, not a head coach, just someone who is part of the coaching staff have this level of stature and this level of experience, which is really exciting. This guy is Portuguese, started his, I suppose, coaching career back in 2009 with Swansea as a fitness coach. Since then, and it looks like he is mainly a fitness coach, but he has moved on to be a manager, a head of academy coaching, and all this other stuff. He's been at Leicester, Nacional, Olympiacos, Swansea once again as head of academy coaching, Birmingham as assistant manager, and he has come from the Portuguese second tier, who he was a manager of for about 2 years. So to have that experience in the coaching staff is vital and really important. I think that, and this answers the question that Al had said earlier. We do not have a man. I'll say manager because it's the easiest way to describe it, but it's not a manager. A manager and a head coach are different. They're different roles. A head coach is someone who, he picks the lineups, he helps out with the training and whatnot, and he speaks to the media more often, but he doesn't have involvement in the transfers. A manager makes the transfers or has a good say in it. We want a head coach by the look of things. So that's the reality of things. But to have someone with that experience and that expertise is really, really exciting. But that is the third part of this stream done. We've nearly been going an hour. So I really appreciate the fact that it looks like, and it's this corner, I can see the average viewer or the viewers that are live. We've had an average of about 10 viewers this entire time. So thank you all very much. I don't know if we gained many subscribers or all that stuff during that time, but if you haven't subscribed or you haven't liked the stream, please feel free, because, this might be more of a regular thing I do, because I've really enjoyed it. And I hope you've all kind of reciprocated that. But moving on, we've got 2 more parts to talk about, and they may be short parts to talk about, they may be long parts to talk about, it all depends. But what should we expect going into the season? This is a question that I've seen mentioned a lot, and I thought I'd get my opinions on it, and I'd listen to opinions, going around. See, that's that. There we are. First one. We're not quite done, but this is the first of hopefully many streams I do, and I hope that we can, grow this channel more, and I can potentially help the the word of what's going on at Newport out there a little bit more. I don't have a massive platform, but I'm trying my hardest to help the club and help that kind of exposure and everything else. But yeah, part 4. What should we expect going into the 2024-25 season? There's 2 outcomes, I feel, or potentially 3, depending on how you look at it. We either, this policy of signing players, having a head coach, or signing young players, having a head coach, falls flat on its face. There is the potential that happens, and we'll be in trouble, and we'll be sacking head coaches and everything, and it'll be a very, very long, difficult season to get through. There is that potential. I do not think that that will happen, because I trust Hugh Jenkins's judgment on things. I trust his policy, and I trust the staff that we are going to bring on. So, and the fact that we've had, less things and we've managed to stay up for so many years is an achievement in itself. So I don't think that'll happen. So that's why I'm not even ruling it as a possibility. I think no matter what we'll see is progression. No matter what, we will benefit from this. We were 18th last season. I think a very bare minimum, we'll finish 17th. We'll make progress. That's what I can see. I don't see how you have an owner or, someone within that field who has this much experience, has had that much success within football, and doesn't end up having, an improvement on the season in League Two. Now, this is the exciting part, and I think this is the most likely part. I don't think we'll get promotion, but necessarily, not quite yet, because we need to make more signings, and the entire league needs to make more signings, so it's too early to say that. But I think we'll be up there. I do think we'll be challenging for a good majority of the season. I think we'll almost do. Last season, we were very close up until those final 8 games, those final 2 months. But I generally think we'll be up there for the whole season. We'll be competing for the whole season. There will be ups and downs. There'll be bumps, as there is in any football season. But I generally have faith that we'll be fighting for promotion. Do I think we'll get it? I don't know yet. But I do think we'll, at the very bare minimum, have that top half finish and be in that fight until the final few games. Whether we slip off is a different question. But the thing that gives me that hope or that belief that we will, and I hope a lot of people reciprocate this, we have had an owner come in who has taken a team, albeit not on his own. He's taken a team from League Two to the Premier League. I'm not saying that's the standard we should set at a minimum, but that experience cannot be ignored. We've got every single player we have signed has mentioned that they want to be up there, which we haven't seen in years. I haven't seen players of this club necessarily say directly, and they've not been hinting at it. Some of them have been saying it directly. Let's be up there at the end of the season. Let's be fighting for promotion. I believe it was Joe Thomas who said, let's get promoted. And I understand that is very vague comments, and I've had a little bit of a back and forth with a few people because, of course, players are going to say that. I agree with it, but we don't usually have that. We don't have that kind of, not that mentality or that want to get promoted, but we've not had people say it directly. Even last season when we were in fights for playoffs, Graham Coughlan batted an eye to it. He didn't mention it at all. The players didn't, really mention it at all. So that's the reality of things. We're a lot more direct on it, and we very much want it. Again, it could fall flat on its face, and we could finish 17th. But that potential and the fact that it's being mentioned gives me the hope. And again, I trust Hugh Jenkins. I trust all the coaching staff and the players and the solid core that we've already got with, Bryn Morris, Will Evans, Will Digg, Townsend, even Kyle Jameson, etc. I believe we can be up there. And another reason is I think this league is a lot weaker than it was last season. You've had, teams that have either been developing for promotion or have had the money to skyrocket up the league and, blow everyone out of the water. They've had that. Stockport, Mansfield, Wrexham are gone. Those teams are massive and, we're going to always be up there. Other than maybe Milton Keynes, I can't really name you who will be the front runners to win this league. The fact that Chesterfield are being mentioned to be up there is bizarre in itself. But you maybe say Gillingham, you maybe say Notts County, but these are maybes. They're not concrete like they potentially were last season. So there's a lot of things that can happen next season. Of course there is, but there's always the there's always the potential, isn't it? There's always that hope, and that's the hope I've got. And then we've got, I think, well, it will be unless we have anything else that we want to talk about, or if there's anything else that is mentioned and we can talk into in more depth. Part 5, and this almost bridges on from my last comments. Trust the process. It's a saying that I know a lot of people don't like. I don't necessarily love it, but I think it is the perfect epitome of what we should be doing. This will not be an easy season by any stretch of the imagination. It may be a successful one that we look back on and go, wow, fantastic, what a season of transition. But that's what this season is. It is a transition season. It will be difficult. Things will be made wrong, potentially. There's always that opening for it to happen. My hope is that we could be up there, but potentially it doesn't, happen. But I won't be angry about it. I think we've got one of the most exciting abilities now as a club to push on and make sure that we're, up there, or at least we have the ability to, let's say, 2-3 seasons down the line, push to promotion. I haven't felt that with this amount of concrete opinion, or this club hasn't felt that with the amount of backing that we have now. That's the exciting thing. And it may not be next year, it may not be the year after, but we can definitely have certainty that within a few years, we'll be fighting for promotion and we will achieve it. Which, if you're talking a fan-owned club, very, very difficult. Accrington Stanley did it, and it was phenomenal to see them do it. But that's one of the only examples of a team get promoted from League Two as a fan-owned club. You need to, in the modern age of football, I always say this, in the age of football where money is, everything within the sport, you need to be able to have that backing and to have an owner, or ideally an owner that knows what he's doing, or an owner that knows what he wants to bring to the club. Our owner knows the exact philosophy he wants to bring. He knows the type of player he wants to bring in. He's near enough sorted out the Rodney Parade lease for the next 10 years, which was something that we were all worried about. But it looks like he has got that deal over the line, which for short-term, middle-term, long-term is fantastic in itself. He's got that deal over the line that benefits us and the Dragons more than it formerly did. We have closed off the North Terrace, which is smart because not many people use it. We've reduced the kind of cost to run the ground, and we're there for another 10 years. Rodney Parade's our home for the next 10 years, or at least it looks that way. Unless anything goes wrong, which I don't think it will, because again, I trust that Hugh Jenkins and the Dragons have had very beneficially conversations, and they've had that benefit there. But I think that there is that genuine hope. And I entirely agree with this comment from Tom. It's a new era at the club. 100%. Like I said, we have now the backing and the owner. And hopefully within the next, who knows how long, we might even have the infrastructure prepared to push up the table and push up the leagues and remain there and continue to mutually benefit and continue to make sport in Newport, a lot bigger and a lot more beneficial and a lot more exciting than potentially what it's had. You add that in with Newport City, who of course are now partnered up with Newport, which is a mutually beneficial thing in itself. To have both of those things there is fantastic, exciting for the sport in Newport and the infrastructure we're looking to build in this city. Hopefully, like I said, we've already passed the season ticket, goal, or the season ticket total that we had last season, which is massive. But hopefully that continues to build and the city of Newport and the club benefit from it. And, we're looking back in 10 years' time and we're going, wow, what an achievement for Newport, and what a story that the club have managed to develop from staying in League Two for 10 plus years on a fan-owned shoestring budget with local managers and players that haven't had the backing at all the clubs, to now being able to say you're one of the teams that people want to play for, or people want to emulate and want to kind of develop off of. So, with that said, that's about all I've got. That's all of this wrapped up in an hour, which I think personally is potentially the best hour I've ever produced in terms of content on this channel, because it's been interactive. I was worried that not many people were going to join and not many people were going to put their thoughts in. But to have, 10 plus people for a good majority of this stream talk about Newport or talk about and, emulate the kind of support and just talk football is really exciting. You can't get that out of a video. And that is why I decided to do a live stream instead of one, because I think it was very much something that we needed to, we needed to talk about. Again, I was going to do it in video format, but when I saw that Alex mentioned that he wanted to, he much prefers live streams, I much prefer talking on live streams because I'm thinking quick and all this other stuff, which I'm quite fortunate to I hope be able to do. There were a few kind of slip ups where I messed up on my words and whatnot, but it's my first individual stream, which I was worried about. I was worried about when we were doing this. When I announced I was doing this yesterday, because I didn't think people would join. I didn't think people would, talk about football and just, continue to emulate that kind of that beneficial thing. But we've managed to get through, and I've really, really enjoyed it. So, like thank you for sticking by. And I understand that Newport isn't exactly your I'd imagine you'd much prefer talking about Wrexham than Newport, but to have you here for there we are. Thank you very much. It's not that I'm uncomfortable necessarily doing lives. I really enjoy the the times last season where I was on and speaking with you and whatnot, but doing it on my own and and it's just me and nobody else can talk and kind of butt into or it kind of just overtake what I'm talking about and everything is or direct the conversation was definitely new to me. So it's not been perfect, but it's done all right. We've done okay. And I've just opened up, let me just open up the channel, because I'd like to see if we've gained hopefully a few new subscribers and hopefully a few new faces, which again in itself is really really exciting. And thank you, Tom, for sticking by and having your opinions as well on Newport, because again that it's not just my opinion that matters here. I much like having different opinions and contrasting opinions and talking about them. I think that's half the beautiful thing about football. And I've just looked at the channel. We have gained 5 subscribers during this stream, which is phenomenal. For a first stream, I'm really pleased with it. And hopefully, I don't think this will be a daily thing, but I'm hoping at least once a fortnight we can come together and talk about Newport. I'll still have the videos coming out because why not? We'll do the shorts as well, because I think they're a nice, again, shorter form of content that you can produce, and hopefully this season this channel can really spike up, and we can really look on it and be again, excited for the season to come and excited for the future of Newport and mutually beneficial chats and relationships. And who knows, maybe we'll do some live shows that aren't Newport. Maybe we'll do live shows where we get a bunch of different fans on and we just talk whatever, because I love those streams as well. They're always good fun. But with all of that said, I really really appreciate you all stopping by. And like it says conveniently below me, and it's this way. Wait, no, it's that way it's going across, yeah. Support the channel in whatever way you see fit using the links in the description. My Instagram is there, my Twitter is there, my TikTok. I got a Facebook page. There's also the Ko-Fi link, if you'd like to use that for whatever reason. It's those options are all there. So with all of that said, like I said, really appreciate the kind of support. Let me quickly, can I do it before I Am I doing it? Oh, I've just deleted the background. Okay, I've not. Okay, that's fine. I was gonna full screen myself when we want to do that, but it seems that doesn't want to work for me. So we'll find a way to fix that in due course. But for now, let me just give me a sec. Let me just. There we go. We got a different color. How nice. But with all of that said, thank you all for stopping by. Really appreciate it. Thank you all for all the support and kind words. And yeah, I'll speak to you soon. But this has been
in your bucket hat, flying across the country and getting fat, saying everything is groovy when your tires are flat and it's high on Newport County.
And there we are. Thank you to you all, and thank you for the kind words. Thank you for the kind words of support for when I go to Cardiff Ned, and I officially begin hopefully the journey into sports media full on. But yeah, other than that, enjoy the rest of your morning, afternoon, evening, whenever you're watching this, because of course this will be out now as technically a video. But yeah, other than that, hope you've enjoyed and take care.